This video will be about working with epoxy, and there's some trash collection going on outside, so you'll hear some metal banging while this video is in progress. So I'm going to use epoxy glue to put these together. Since the surfaces are rigid, they're not easily flexed. That is, they don't bend from their shape unless you apply a lot of force. This should work with a glue that dries relatively, it can be a little bit brittle, which means breaks when bent, such as epoxy. The epoxy should make a much stronger connection than the silicone caulk. So I'm still going to put a little bit of caulk around the very edge just to assure that it's airtight. Now, it's generally a good idea when applying any sort of glue to a surface to rough the surface up a little bit. Gives the if you look at it with a microscope, you can see that the small scratches kind of look like canyons at the microscopic level, which gives the glue an opportunity to hold. Another thing that a little bit of sanding can do is it can remove, sometimes it might be a very small fine layer of another material right on the surface that can actually come off, and a little bit of sanding can make sure that the glue is connecting with the main material. This surface is actually kind of already a little bit rough, but because of its finish, for consistency, I'm going to score it as well. And now that I did that, I'm going to clean the surface. I'm using these alcohol wipes because they'll dry pretty fast. This is doing two things: getting rid of any fine oils that might be on the surface that would prevent the glue from connecting. And another thing that it's doing is making sure that any of the dust created with the sandpaper is not going to interfere with the glue. Again, if you're looking for a soundtrack while listening to this video, I do recommend listening to music by Boots Riley. So probably start putting maybe some links in these videos so people can listen to music. Well, you can listen to music anyway, but to encourage it, because construction noises in the background and such, it's not always everyone's preferred audio landscape. Okay, so now that I did that, I'm going to get these out of the way, and we're going to use this glue. And epoxies, they're going to be mixed. They're often mixed in equal parts, but it's good to follow the directions anyway. This is something that I don't always do myself. First it says clean area of dirt, grease, oil, and paint. We already did that. Mix. Squeeze equal parts from each tube into a disposable surface and mix thoroughly. So I already got some toothpicks and cotton swabs out so I can apply it. Also, when working with glue, it's always good to have materials that you can use to clean it up. It's also a good idea if you have them to wear gloves during this current pandemic. Gloves are in short supply and I haven't been ordering them because I know medical professionals need them and I can get by without gloves for now. You can also use, if you have a good set of kitchen gloves, you can reuse them, so those can often work. Apply with appropriate tool, even coat, welded bead, or extruded. Extruded just means like a shape that's pre-formed by a machine. Sets in 6 minutes, so this means we only have about 6 minutes after we mix it to work, and then in 4 hours it's usable. This is based on room temperature. It's a little bit above room temperature here, so we might have maybe 5 minutes to work with it. So that means that once we actually mix it, we will have to be somewhat quick. The advantage is this will be ready to use a lot quicker than if I just use the silicone caulk. Though since I'm still going to apply a silicone caulk, I'll still have the 24-hour waiting period anyway. Okay, so we have our materials. I mentioned in a previous video that I have this lined up so that the filter is going to be facing in this direction. And with that said, I will now mix the glue. So this is the part that hardens it. This is the main part, and this cap comes with a point to break the seal. And I will try to get an equal amount of each material. Now my 6 minutes won't actually start until these materials are mixed. So right now the 6 minutes hasn't started. Computer, start a 6-minute timer.
6 minutes, starting now.
And now, from this point, we need to do what we're gonna do in 6 minutes. So it's, when working with this stuff, you want to get a very even mix of the material. And if you work with the same type of epoxy a lot, you'll start to notice a very specific color that will be, it's unique to each individual brand of epoxy. But you'll get used to what it looks like when you mix the right amount of the materials together. And if I haven't worked with this particular epoxy that much, so I don't know the exact shade that I'm looking for. But if I did, that would let me mix, or what I could do is I could look at the shade and be like, okay, do I need to add a little bit more of the hardener or a little bit more of the other material, the base. Now I'm just going to apply this. Actually isn't the best applicator. Maybe I'll have more luck with this. I hope I have enough epoxy. Actually try maybe just directly applying it. It's real important in this case to have enough of it to get a complete seal. I hope I still have some time in my 6 minutes because I don't think I used enough of the material. All right. Oops. I want to be careful with this. Stuff is very difficult to clean. Let's see. I want to try to make sure I have an even coating. That is going to be airtight, literally. I'm going to clean up the inside a little bit because I definitely don't want any of this, oops, I don't want any of this glue to actually make contact between the part of the fan that moves and the outside of the case, because if that happens, then the fan won't work. Also, I don't want any of this stuff to get in between the jar and the lid, because that would make a surface that would could create air gaps between the jar and the lid when it's put together. So I hope I have this well enough. I guess you can't see what I'm doing right there. So what I'm trying to do is a little bit of that epoxy on the inside of this lid, and I'm just trying to make sure that at least where the jar meets, there's no epoxy. It looks like I'm right at the 6 minutes. Now I'm going to squeeze that down there, and I'm going to turn it this way so that any of the glue running will run away from the fan. And I'm just going to let the weight of the fan hold it, and hope that I didn't get any around the blades. Computer, cancel timer. And that's a wrap. Need to clean my hands before I try to turn off the camera. I think this pinky is relatively free of any of the epoxy. So that's a wrap again. This was a video of how to work with epoxy.